built in 1611, and it is the first purpose-built Protestant church in Amsterdam. Any church older than this was originally Catholic and transformed into a Protestant church. And we're going to talk about this era a bit now. This is all part of what we call the Reformation. The Reformation is a movement that began in Germany in the 16th century, largely as a protest amount of power the Catholic Church held, as well as their interpretation of the Bible, which for the first time would become readily available thanks to the printing press. These new Protestant ideas spread through Europe very quickly and very violently, like a fire, burning down buildings and killing a lot of people. But not in Amsterdam, because in Amsterdam we like to do things a little bit differently. You see, for us, it didn't make any sense to go around burning down churches if we just had to build new ones, so we just converted them all from Catholic to Protestant. Also, we didn't go around killing all the Catholics because, to be honest, it's just bad for business. A lot of these Catholics were wealthy merchants, and they brought money to town. Money is the only real religion of the city. So despite becoming officially Catholic free in 1578, the Catholics were allowed to stay, so long as they practiced in secret. All thanks to a Dutch policy called plausible deniability, whereby the state will allow something illegal to happen, as long as they can close their eyes and pretend nothing's going on. For something to be plausibly deniable, they have to meet 3 important criteria. They have to be good for business, they cannot hurt anyone, and they have to be discreet. And this third point was a challenge for the Catholics of the city, because their religion requires them to meet and hold services. No longer did they have any churches, so what did they do? Some of the wealthy Catholics started to build hidden Catholic churches in their own homes. And how hidden were they? Well, at the peak, there were 36 different hidden churches in the city. Everybody knew what was going on. They let it slide because they followed the rules. This wacky policy of secret Catholics didn't just last for 5 or 10 years. It lasted for over 200 years. From 1578 till 1796, when Napoleon declared all religions to practice openly once more, and that's when they started building new Catholic churches. Some of the older ones became museums, and one of which is now my favorite little museum in Amsterdam. It's incredibly beautiful. I think a lot of people often want to find the little gem, the little special other thing. For me, that's this secret church. It's a beautiful secret church built in the attic of a house. Really well-preserved house. You can see how Dutch people lived back in the Golden Age, and the church itself is very beautiful. When you put these two pieces together, you end up with a monument to 400 years of tolerance, 400 years of getting along, not for any lofty purpose, but just because it's better for business. And it's a beautiful church. It's got the best name for a church ever. It's called Our Lord in the Attic. And I think it's lovely. So if you want to go check it out later on, I highly recommend it. It's in the red light district. You can book tickets during the break as well. It's also one of the cheaper museums in Amsterdam. It's only 11 euros, and it's really, really special. But the concept of plausible deniability still exists today in Amsterdam. Not for any religion, but instead for marijuana. A lot of people come to Amsterdam thinking that marijuana is legal, but it's not. Marijuana was never legalized. It's just tolerated through a system of plausible deniability. So let's check it against our 3 criteria. 1, is it good for business?
Yep.
Yes. It's estimated that 1/4 of all tourists come to Amsterdam just to smoke weed, and 3/4 will spend some money in the industry at some point. It brings in about 14 billion euros a year in tourism revenue. So welcome everybody. 2, is it hurting anybody? Not really. And 3, are they being discreet? Well, again, they're being discreet enough, which is why you'll notice there's no such thing as a marijuana shop in Amsterdam. Lots of coffee shops. Coffee shop is a code word we use to mean marijuana shop because they're simply not allowed to advertise the fact that they sell marijuana. So we call them coffee shops. If all you want is a coffee, those are called cafes. Write that down. Otherwise you're going to get in there, you'll be like, I'll have a latte and, a brownie. Half an hour later, it was a good latte. It's really good. So just be careful, you know what you're doing. I used to smoke marijuana, I admit it, but I had to quit because marijuana makes me incredibly paranoid, and I get followed around for a living. So everywhere I go, there's 25 people behind me, like staring at me, asking me questions. It freaks me out. I want to talk about religious tolerance, not just Catholic and Protestant. Amsterdam was also for a long time home to a huge number of Jewish settlers who came in and made the city home. Because we didn't care. They brought with them trade, and they did. The diamond trade made Amsterdam a very wealthy city. This was the beginning of the old Jewish district of Amsterdam. You'll notice the city looks very different around here, because this area was largely destroyed at the end of the Second World War. So a very visual reminder of the deep emotional scars the city went through. So by 1940, Amsterdam had 80,000 Jews, over 10% of the population. By the end of the war, however, only about 5,000 had survived, most of them killed very viciously all around Europe. And we can't compare our suffering with the suffering of others because everyone in the war suffered. It's an incredibly difficult time in European history. But especially for a city like Amsterdam, occupation was incredibly rough because we're a city that celebrated diversity and tolerance and multiculturalism. And suddenly the Nazis came in and ripped this part of it us out. And these days, I mean, we still live in a post-war Europe. These days we all love each other, we're all Europeans, we're all in it together, most of us. We still hate each other though, and that's why we have the World Cup and the Euro Cup, to get it out of our system. So every once in a while we go like, ugh, let's just be like, suddenly like really, all Italians, and but then we get it out of our system. The Dutch, however, didn't qualify for the World Cup. That's almost 200 years. This company stood at the forefront of global trade. In its pursuit of profit, almost accidentally left in its wake the sort of modern philosophies and ideals that helped give birth to the modern era. It sounds a bit much, it sounds a bit heavy-handed, it's all entirely true, and it happened right here. If it sounds too good to be true, it's because I left a little bit out. I left out all the horrible, horrible, horrible shit that they did. And the list of bad things they did is longer than the list of good things that they did. Empires are built on gunpowder and bloodshed and steel, and the Dutch Empire is no different. You don't end up with colonies in the Caribbean if you're not involved in the slave trade in the Dutch were. You don't rule countries halfway around the world for 400 years without tremendous violence, and they did that as well. But somehow, it's a weird parallel, as Amsterdam was committing atrocities around the world, it helped the city itself to become this beacon of liberalism, this birthplace of the Enlightenment. And I don't want to whitewash the horrible side, it definitely happened. But it's a complicated part of our history, it's worth always considering both sides. If you want to learn more about this era, the best place to go is the Rijksmuseum, the National Gallery. It is an amazing museum. If you're like me, you think you don't like art galleries. You go to the Louvre in Paris and you're like a bit disappointed. And you go visit the Mona Lisa and you're very disappointed because it's a tiny little painting. Then you go to the Rijksmuseum and they have the Night Watch and it's enormous and it's much better. And sorry, it's not better, it's just bigger. The nice thing about the Rijksmuseum is they know that you don't have a master's degree in art history. Through this gate over here, it's a garden that was built up, a courtyard that was built up by French women who moved here in the 14th century looking for religious freedom. These women were part of a sect called the Beguines, and the square is called the Begijnhof, the Beguine courtyard. The last of the Beguines died in 1972. They were here for a very long time. Today the whole area is run by the Begijnhof Foundation, who now rents out the space only to women above the age of 30. There's no men allowed in here after 5 o'clock in the evening, which I agree, sounds very dull for the women. But I read an interview with a lady who lives here. She says sometimes you do see the milkman running away at 6 in the morning. So there is still some sexual drama going on. We're going to check it out. Incredibly beautiful. One of the most beautiful places in the entire city. We're going to go inside and point out some historical buildings from the central square. Then we're going to loop out to the square on the other side and continue our tour into the canal belt. Follow me inside to enjoy the beautiful... outside of the UK. This is a Protestant church. This is a Catholic church. This is a hidden Catholic church side by side in the Protestant ones. Both of these are still active churches, which is very rare for Amsterdam. Back there, we have a wooden building. One of only 2 wooden houses left in Amsterdam. That's what the city looked like for a long time before we built it. Right outside. Stop fires. Definitely come back, check out this church. It's very nice. We're heading out this way into the next square, continue our tour through the canal belt. Follow me out this way. Oh, the red light tour tonight? country. We're currently in the middle of the biggest drought in Dutch history. We've had like 2 months of nice weather, which is bizarre. They say it hasn't rained in 2 months, which means it's only rained twice.
That's good.
It rained the other day. People were like, it hasn't rained. I'm like, it rained for like 30 minutes one morning. It's here every Sunday. Really, really nice. Real central local spot. A lot of students around here, a lot of university buildings too. There's a great bookstore if you want to go shopping for English language books over there. They've got the market here. Up that alleyway, they've got the best French fries in town. Up that alleyway, they have the best coffee shop in town. Do those in the opposite order for best effect. And up there, a lot of good traditional Dutch bars. The traditional Dutch bar, our equivalent of the Irish pub, we call a brown bar or a brown cafe because they're all brown on the inside. They're made of wood. It's just warm and cozy, and that's the Dutch style.
Nice.
If you want to know if you're having a drink somewhere for tourists or for locals, it's a very simple trick to figure it out. Find out how much a small beer costs. A small Heineken or a Grolsch or an Amstel should cost between $2.50 and $2.90. Anywhere that's charging more is ripping you off. A very fancy place might charge $3 and we'll get away with it because it's so nice. But anywhere that's more than €3 is like, look, they're literally saying, look at these stupid tourists, we're gonna take all their money from them. And that's the trick to know if you're in a touristy spot or not. Find out how much a small Heineken.
Yeah.
How about a mojito? What's the average cost?
A mojito would be more like 7 or 8.
Oh my God,
So I got
you've
ripped
been
off back
robbed.
there.
11. He paid 11.
Yeah, the place we were at, they're one of those spots. I don't choose where we take our breaks. It's not a lot of room. That's it.
Now you say
Well,
it?
you
No.
now you can say that you paid.
Never go back to the Tara. Please don't put my name
in your life.
Cool.
You know.
Everyone get their water.
So what's the name of this place?
Spow Square.
Spow.
It's spelled Spooey, but it's pronounced Spow.
Do you trust those bars?
That's very popular. Oh, for coffee.
So cafe.
I don't drink coffee, so I couldn't tell you. I can tell you my favorite one. In the red light district, there's the old church that we call the old church. Attached to it is a little cafe. It's a little garden there attached to it. That's my favorite spot to sit.
So how about those bars? Do you trust them over there?
Those are nice bars too.
Yeah.
Where are we now? On Spow Square.
Oh, okay. Spot here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Everyone nice and
To
hydrated.
drink a beer here, like $2.50.
Head out now to the canal belt and talk about.
Now we
canals
found a
and
place
bikes and
affordable.
bridges and stuff.
Yeah.
Follow me this way to the right and wiggle, wiggle. We'll get there.
Definitely.
I love the sandwich shop. I don't care anything for saying it. I stand out here. I point out, I say, that's the best sandwich shop in town. Make sure they hear me, they know me. When I go back later, they charge me full price.
For free.
It's still pretty reasonable. Oh yeah, no, it's like for €7 you get a delicious sandwich with like a mountain of salad.